All right. So I am so excited. This is one of those full circle moments. And I know I've said this to you both before, but thank you for all of you who are joining and coming into the room right now. This is something really special and dear to all of our hearts. We have all worked in some capacity in computer science education in Chicago and have kind of come back together to bring you guys what I hope is an aha moment that I know I had many years ago, but really kind of tapping into this idea of why we need to get to know our students and really have this conversation about strengths so that we can guide them into the pathways that are going to be their future. But specifically, we're going to be talking about computer science today. And I am so excited to present an organization that is doing amazing things out there and some people who are running it. So I'm going to turn it over to them. Thank you for being here. I'm Jeanette Simonson with Thrively, and I am so excited to introduce Abril and Julio with CS for Success.
Hi, my name is Julia Flores. I'll be one of the facilitators for today. I am co-founder and principal consultant at CS for Success. And I'll let Abril introduce herself.
Hi, yes, my name is Abril Vela. I'm also a co-founder and principal consultant at CS for Success. We are very excited about our partnership with Thrively and to preview some of the work that we've been doing with them for you today. Julia is going to be taking the lead on reviewing the work, and I'm going to hand it back over to her.
Thanks, Abril. So allow me to tell you a little bit about us. At CS for Success, we aim to create a more equitable, accessible, and inclusive landscape for computer science education. We envision a world in which all students have the opportunity to pursue introductory to advanced level coursework, partake in hands-on skill training, and understand the real-world applications of all of their classroom experiences. To do this, we focus on working with districts or even individual schools and educational organizations like Thrively to develop programs that provide high-quality computer science experiences for all students. In fact, we are currently experiencing a trend that sees fewer to low to no skilled jobs disappearing as technology advancements make those workers redundant. So for example, we have seen that robots have replaced many factory line workers. Furthermore, technology exists today that will significantly reduce the need for truck drivers soon. And as those jobs disappear, they're replaced by various computing jobs. Every industry is being changed by technology, not just the STEM field. And if we truly want to prepare our students for the jobs of the future, they must become, at the very least, more computer literate, and to have the most opportunities, learn computer science. So what does this mean? Okay, these innovations in technology and in all of the technology that's out there may be closing some doors, but as I've mentioned, they're creating more in the process. So let's start with a little bit of data. 67% of all of the new jobs in STEM industry are in computing or are computing related. There are close to 700,000 job openings in computing across every industry and every state. We do not have enough qualified candidates in the labor market right now to fill these jobs. That means that the people that meet the qualifications have their pick of jobs. And it also means that if we can't fill the jobs here, we start to look elsewhere to fill those jobs. More fascinating still is that some of these jobs do not require a college degree, which is kind of what we think of when we think computing. We think, oh man, you must really need to have some specialized skill that requires you to go to 10 years of college, and that's just not the case. And some of these jobs can be taken by high school graduates with experience in things like web development, app development, or high school students that attain an industry certification. So it's no longer really necessary for them to go to college to get these jobs. There is a huge opportunity for all students, not just the ones going to college. And this isn't just something happening in the STEM field, like I mentioned, it's across the board. In an effort to prepare college graduates to use computing in their selected careers, many colleges are offering computer science fusion majors. And you see new majors springing up in various places around the United States, like music plus CS, or archaeology plus CS, or agriculture and computer science, and that is a huge field. It's important to note also that computer science majors can earn 40% above the average starting salary of a college graduate. Now, we would love to see all students go on to become computer scientists and take this advantage of this massive opportunity, but we know that that's not everybody's path. However, they should know a little bit about it because it's going to be in their industry. Now, we have had the opportunity to see many different types of implementations in the many years that I, Abril, and Troy have worked in computer science education. Some schools start with a plan and slowly layer things in. So like we see here, they'll start with an implementation plan, they'll identify goals, they have activities, they find the curriculum, professional development, and then they decide where they have the funds, the resources, the capability, bandwidth to start folding these opportunities in. So they may start with an out-of-school time program, or they may replace a technology special the first year and then layer in a out-of-school time program. Then they might decide that they want to integrate computer science school-wide in all subjects, and then maybe work up to work-based learning opportunities like job shadows and field trips and things like that. There is no wrong way to start. The important thing is to figure out what works for your situation. If you're here, I'm guessing that is where you want to be. Can we click, Jeanette? So your path might not be as straight as some of the other ones. You might start with the technology and then go back and then go forward, then create your plan. It really just depends on where you are, right? And in the years, we've seen implementations. We started to notice that there were a couple of things that we just weren't getting right. Something was just not clicking, because no matter where a school started and what the training was that was provided to the teacher, many teachers were having a really hard time getting comfortable teaching something that they weren't experts in. And as a result, we saw many teachers teach for a little bit, maybe a semester, a year, and then that was it. They didn't want to do it anymore. And it's a big lift to have to research and to continue. But that kind of got our gears working. Jeanette? Oh. So we knew that we had to do something. We had to create something that helped teachers find more success and feel more comfortable. And we started to ask around. And what we found was that despite the teachers having taken hours of professional development on CS curriculum, teachers still didn't really understand what computer science was. Furthermore, they didn't feel connected to computer science. If you ask them if they, what did they teach, they wouldn't say computer science. It was typically, whatever they got their initial certificate in, which is fine. But we knew that there was a gap. We needed to help them build that community and feel more comfortable. So many really were equating computer science to just programming, and that could have been a function of maybe the professional development, because they were doing a curriculum that was purely programming. But we noticed that, okay, well, maybe we need to take a step back and figure out what this is. So without being able to consider them CS teachers, they really didn't have that permanence there, right? That serious commitment. Some couldn't figure out how to recruit underrepresented populations, and they felt that they were perpetuating the stereotype. So we went to the drawing board to try to figure out what we could do to help bridge that gap and help these teachers feel more comfortable. And the result of that was we had to start changing the way we talked to and approached these teachers. We had to identify what their short-term and their long-term goals were for computer science. We had to help them understand that embarking on this journey meant identifying and accepting where they were now in their CS mastery and helping them create a plan that would allow them to layer in learning opportunities for themselves. And so feeling comfortable with knowing that I may not know it now, but later on, I'm going to start getting the learning that I need, right? And we had to help them understand the detriment that the stereotype had on the subject in general, and how to actively combat it to attract more underrepresented minorities. In many of the schools that we had seen, they started a program and it was a majority of boys. And when you ask the girls, like, hey, what's going on? They're like, well, that's for boys. So you really have to be intentional when you sit down and try to create access to computer science. And when we started creating content, we realized that we had 4 solid topics. Even though we had those 3 areas, 4 emerged that we couldn't find addressed really anywhere in other professional development that was out there. So to quick launch a computer science career for a teacher and help them understand all of the concepts in it, we designed 2 modules. So that one topic we broke up into 2 modules. And the first one is, what is CS? And what is CS pulls back the curtain on computer science. It allows people to find out once and for all what it is and what you should be teaching in a computer science classroom. This way, there aren't any more confusions between, like, is this computer literacy? Is this computer science? So we created that course first. Then when we saw that teachers really wanted to go beyond just what the curriculum was to be able to integrate it, we thought, well, man, we really need to help them identify what standards they want to work in, and not just identify the standards, but unpack them so that they really know what that learning opportunity needs to be for students to prove mastery. And so unpacking the CS standards helps you identify all of the resources that are available to help you unpack those computer science teacher association standards and create learning activities. So to help teachers create a learning plan that they need to feel more comfortable with where they are and focus on their growth, we created Mastering CS. And lastly, we created Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging to ensure that our teachers learn the skills to help those marginalized communities get access, feel comfortable, and feel like they belong in a computer science classroom. And these topics really help set those teachers up to map out the journey that they're going to take. And like most learning journeys, identifying your strengths is only going to help you to set that destination. There are so many areas to explore in computer science, such as artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning, website development, that where you take your students really depends on you. I strongly encourage you to identify your strengths and explore the CS areas to see where they overlap. Because, for example, with a strength in social justice and an interest in programming, you might find yourself drawn to creating projects for your students that has them creating apps that help serve a need in the community. So really, the sky is the limit. But I do believe that those 2 places are a good place to start.
Yeah. And, I want to take, I'm going to escape out of the presentation for just a minute and show our audience here. I can't say enough thank you to Julia and team for creating these opportunities because, and we'll tell you a little bit about our journey in just a moment, but these are self-driven. So when I had a curiosity, when I was starting to move out of the math classroom and into how do I provide these opportunities for my students, I needed to know where to go. And this is right here ready for our audience who's saying, you know, a teacher might be a K-2 teacher. It might be a middle school math teacher like myself. It might be somebody who is an English teacher saying, okay, I want to know what is computer science. So starting here, and really we've gone, you all have created something that is just really non-threatening, very easy to embark on and to get into. And so as you see here, the introduction just lays it out there. There's this whole computer science project workbook that allows for teachers to kind of go at their own pace and ask questions in the collaboration feed over here. So if you are joining us as an administrator or a teacher who's interested, you can join this first cohort and you start to get feedback from other people that are right at the same level you are. I'm curious. I want to know how to bring this to our schools. And so this whole project, What is Computer Science, is very much laid out so that you can go through all of your hopes and fears, your thoughts at a very basic level, but it quickly jumps into, you know, deconstructing the computer. Some of us really still are trying to understand, like, what are the parts here? And then getting into how does that connect with computer science and software and all the other pieces. And then you finish off with this ideation piece. So it always ends up with a call to action or something that you're going to create and upload and share with the community that's going to be part of this first cohort. As Julia nicely shared, what is CS is the first one, but then we start to get into unpacking the standards, again, laid out the same way, activating. You get, you know, a workbook along with it, and then we've got our lessons. And I really appreciate this one because it unpacks the standards in a way that we're very familiar with doing that in our own content areas, but sometimes it is a little overwhelming when we're starting to think about this. So I want to kind of wrap this up. I just wanted to show you inside the platform, and this is an opportunity, and we'll discuss this at the end, but this is an opportunity for those of you curious, those of you wondering, how do I get involved? This has been made accessible and very easy to start. Where I want to kind of go from here is a question that I know we've all asked, and we'll pause in a second to get Abril and Julia to share their stories. But how many of you have asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? How many of you have asked that or been asked that? How many of you are still asking that at 40, 50 years old? And I think this is a common question, and it's a common question that a lot of the students when I taught middle school didn't know. So I come back to, well, why don't they know that? If we had learner outcomes that really grounded us in, I know my strengths. I have, you know, these are my top 5 strengths. These are the things that I'm interested in. This is how it connects to my career aspirations. Maybe I have some exposure to different careers, but depending on where you grow up and who you're involved with, you may not. I was not introduced to computer science when I was in middle school, or even in high school when I was growing up. And I think it would have been something that I had an aptitude for, but I didn't get to really fully look at that. So do my strengths, do my interests align with my career aspirations? That's when we start to see engagement. We start to see relevance, and we know from the research that this is important. So I don't know, Julia, if you want to come back and share a little bit about your zigzag. I know mine somewhat looks like this, actually. So I don't know the rest of you, if you want to throw in the chat, does your career zigzag look like this one?
Mine absolutely does. When I finished high school, I was pursuing aerospace engineering. I went in and I loved it, but my family was like, yeah, we need you to switch majors. We want you to be in business so that you can help us run the business. And I was like, I did not want to do that, but I switched. And then when I was 19, I started my first real estate business. And I eventually graduated college and went into finance. And I think it was probably like maybe 4 hours into that job that I was like, oh no, this is not for me. So like maybe a month later, I was already looking for other opportunities and was trying to enroll back in school. But as it turned out, I ended up going back to teach, to tutor at my high school, at my old high school. And the principal there said, hey, you're really great with the students. I really like how you break things down. If you could figure out how to teach, you have a job here in the fall. And mind you, this is like the beginning of the summer. And so I called ISB and I said, hey, I have this job offer, but I need to get certified. And they said, sure, send us your transcripts, send us your resume, and we'll evaluate it and see what we can do. And so probably like a month and a half later, I think, I was endorsed in accounting and entrepreneurship at the high school level. So when I showed up to the school, I was ready. I was ready with my license. I showed up and they gave me my schedule, and I turned around and I said, there must be a mistake, because on the schedule, there were 4 IT classes. And so, of course, I started to have a little anxiety attack because I did not have a background in IT. And one of those classes happened to be computer science. Now, I've been in education for probably almost 20 years, and it has spanned from the classroom all the way to district administration and curriculum. Once I got my bearings in the classroom and I learned what I needed for that first year, I identified my passion. And my passion was really trying to help people that were making that change like I did, that were making a career change, help figure out how to survive in the classroom, how to really thrive, and how to make engaging content. And so in the district office, I pursued jobs that were in curriculum and instruction. And I eventually became the manager at Chicago Public Schools for their entire career and technical education curriculum, which is 44 distinct pathways. And I had been there ever since. I actually met Abril and Troy, our other business partner, there in the Office of Computer Science. And so when I got the call to come and help, I said absolutely, and I joined the team. And we helped try to figure out how to bring computer science to all of the students. And they were working on a graduation requirement at the time, and that was in place, but we still had populations that weren't getting it. So we were there to be able to work with these the departments that were involved. So the Office of Diverse Learners and the Office of Culture and Language, to try to make sure that those populations had access to quality computer science. And so, yeah, my journey was definitely not a straight line, And I ended up in computer science without wanting, without wanting to or even volunteering to, but I ended up loving it.
Well, and I'm sure, I'm part of our CSTA here in Colorado, and I hear this story from so many educators that are like, yeah, I was a math teacher and it just seemed like it would be natural, right? I got put in this, we just needed someone to fill the shoes. Well, I feel like that's such an opportunity. And for those of you that are joining us today, I'd love for you to share in the chat, what has been your journey? How did you come to computer science or CTE? Certainly there's a lot of different pathways, but I think, one of the things that we all know to be true is that when we know our strengths, I mean, my career pathway is almost exactly the same as yours. And we both ended up in Chicago Public Schools and, got kind of pulled into this 2016 graduation requirement thing. And it's been the biggest blessing of my life, to be quite frank, working with the students that I got to work with. But, without knowing this, right? And I want everyone who's joining us or watching this on video later, do you know your top 5 strengths? We're all adults here. I would wonder, I took the Gallup Strength Finder for the first time when I was, 40 something. I know I'm aging myself, but I can go and I can say, okay, you know what? My number 1 strength here is worldly. And I'm fascinated by other cultures and are open-minded to see diverse experiences. That nails it right on the head, my experience in Chicago Public Schools. Verbal and coordination and athleticism obviously led me down the pathway of playing volleyball. And so, do you know your strengths? But more importantly, do you know the strengths of your students? Because we're all guides and mentors to our students, and we're the ones, helping them and exposing them and getting them to think outside the box. If you're in a rural environment, you might have access to agriculture, but my students in Chicago did not. When I said the word agriculture, they didn't know what that meant. So, but they might have an aptitude for it. So Thrively gives you this really unique opportunity to be able to see, like this is all the way on the left here, discover your strengths. This is a class view. Okay, so I have 15 students who are analytical in this class. What does that mean for me? And Julia, you're a curriculum designer. Would you design things that, involved getting up and running around, or would you design things that had them doing puzzles and really trying to tackle problems, right? So we pull that, or we set them up to use their strengths for our standards that we know we have to meet, right? The second piece here, exploring their interests. Thrively, asks the students what they're interested in. We can explore the science and technology is the third one in this particular case, but when you click on that green line, you get to see, well, what parts of science and technology, so that you can connect it to the content areas that you're obviously responsible for. And then all the way over on the right-hand side, the pathways. What do my students want to become as they come into my classroom? Now, this might not be what they do end up being, but because I tell you, Chicago Public Schools, Michael Jordan was kind of a big deal back when I was teaching. Everyone wanted to be a professional basketball player, and I was all for supporting them. But I also wanted to expose them to what else. And I had to go back to, what are their strengths? What are the things that they really enjoy doing? So when we know this, we can help guide them better. I think this was an epiphany moment for me, that I didn't know that most people were not aware of the strengths they possess. And in a recent survey, it's less than 50%. Now, this is adults we're talking about. So if this is the case for adults, I wonder what it is for students. And we'll share this presentation with you in just a few minutes, but there's a lot of examples of how, if you're an administrator on this call, how you can create a strengths-based experience for the adults that you work with. But notice that students are biased by their significant others. So teachers, family, friends. Sometimes we focus on a person's weaknesses. We do have a deficit model sometimes in our school systems. And so let's flip that. Let's talk about what they're strong. We say at Thrively here, what's strong with you, not what's wrong with you. And making sure that we get them that full experience of all the career pathways that can be out there. Because if we ignore our abilities, and if we ignore, in this example, Alejandra has creative skill, creative thinking, memory, verbal, and worldly. So she gets this right up after she takes the strength assessment, and she gets to see all the things that she really could do. I can come in as a CTE teacher and go, wow, you're creative and you have an innovative mind. Could you help me with this project? Can you help us look at things a little bit differently? So when people are unaware that they have these, then they can't apply them as often, and we can't make those connections and build those relationships. So we really want to give students the opportunity to be able, like Jaden here, to be able to say, here's our top 5 strengths. And by the way, you can steal this. We've done this in staff meetings. We've done this for students. Jaden knows what he wants to be in life. Okay, so this is great. He can start to work through this. Maybe airline pilot, civil engineer. What does that mean in terms of my coursework? What I want to learn. And I love what I wish people knew about me, so that we can make sure that we're not coming in with biases, that if somebody's having a bad day or feeling something, that we're really aware of how they're absorbing certain situations. So take this, run with it. I hope this is a resource that you'll use in your classrooms. I think strengths, if we ground ourselves in them and we think about the gaps, computer science certainly is a huge gap. Thank you, Julia, for sharing that out. We build the confidence in the engagement. We get them to increase their well-being through really knowing themselves. We want them to be self-aware and productive as they start to think about their futures, and then be creative as they start to think about, what problems am I solving in the world? I know Abril has a story to share, and I want to give her the floor for a minute or two to share her own personal journey through graduating high school and college.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think what you just touched on with building self-awareness is really important. So I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to actually start studying computer science in high school, and it changed my path entirely. It's how I ended up here today with Julia speaking about, these opportunities we're trying to create for educators so that they can create more opportunities for their students. I think a large part of what we need to continue to do as we help students hopefully become more self-aware about themselves as we continue to develop computer science skills early on in the K-12 pipeline is, really listen to them as they're developing this awareness of, what are you interested in? What do you want to do? And what do those potential opportunities look like for you in post-secondary? I think for me, I'm very inclined on the social justice side of things. As Julia can tell you, I tend to be very assertive. I'm very interested in people and people-based problems. That's just what I've always been interested in, and how you can use machines to solve those problems is what kind of kept me hooked on computer science when I was in high school. But when I was introduced to computer science, and over the course of those 4 years, the conversation was really about machines and about engineering and about building and creating. Not to say that was a bad thing. It was just I had a very limited scope and a limited view of my options about what I could become or how I could pursue a career. So when I went to college, I ended up on a path that wasn't actually fulfilling for me, because I didn't want to just be enveloped in this world where I was just focused on the engineering side of things to create new machines for the sake of creating newer, faster, better machines. I wanted to be creating for the sake of enhancing our communities, to enhance the lives of people. Which meant I needed to be studying things from a different perspective. And I didn't understand what that meant when I was 18, or what it meant to even be considering what that path. And that's all just to say that really students need to understand what their options are and how computer science and how computing really relates to the world today. And that's really just a larger conversation beyond the scope of learning how to teach these skills. That as students are, building these skills, they can be applied across the board, as Julia said. And so we just don't want to limit the full scope of their development.
Well, and I think you've said it perfect. It's, the more that us as teachers and educators can become educated about the careers that have changed. I mean, when I was going through my education programming, many of the careers that exist today were not weren't careers yet. And it's hard to stay on top of the changes that are happening. So, here's where, again, I think you put it perfectly, how machines and software and computer science can help solve people problems, right? So we have a people problem today. Number one, we've got to keep teachers. Number two, we've got to keep students interested and setting goals that are in alignment with their personality, with their aspirations. And so bringing in these interest surveys, making sure that we give them an opportunity to see, here's a computer programmer, here's what a computer systems analyst does. Here's some videos to go see. Now, this is just exploration stage, but you have to explore enough to be able to go, this seems interesting, this doesn't look interesting, so that I can narrow down my choices. And I think there's an opportunity here to also bring the parents or any family members that are involved in that child's life to have those conversations. Because I know as a mom, I want to know what my kids are interested in so I can choose the appropriate things to put them in on breaks or after school programs. So the more that I can be involved in that. So Thrively really wants to play a role in giving educators this opportunity for exposure. Even if I know nothing about being a computer systems analyst, I can pull in some resources. Thrively is also building out, and with the partnership with CS for Success, we're excited to bring more in the future. But, we have digital and media literacy playlists. These have 3, 6, and 10 hours of lessons and opportunities for students to learn and grow. computer science playlists to help them look at STEM and just different types of coding and app design. We're getting ready. December 5th is our, coding week. And so, jump into Thrively, see what we've got in here, and give your kids an opportunity to go explore some of these really wonderful playlists. But I'm really excited to continue this partnership with CS for Success, because they will continue to build out student-facing lessons and playlists so that you don't have to be the expert as the educator. You learn along with them. And I tell you from experience, 10 years in computer science with students, STEM educator, I continually learned along with them, and it was the best learning experience ever. And I love when they know more than I do, and I say, I don't know that answer. So our whole goal here in this partnership with CS for Success is really to establish this relationship based on strengths and interests, really grounding ourselves in that so that we get to know ourselves and our students. We want to build the teacher's confidence. It's okay that you don't have all the answers, but we've got a platform to support you while also bringing in a student voice. As we continue to build out the resources, we will provide you with learning modules, not only for the educators, but also for projects and playlists for students, so that we can create relevance for their future. They can say, I worked on a problem solving this. We're going to build out work-based learning opportunities. We're going to build out, in hopes that we can do certifications and have something to show in the digital portfolio that students can bring to an organization and say, look what I've done, and be guided, like Abril talked about, guided into the right pathway within, their career pathway that they're choosing. So I'm going to jump over these slides. These are just here. We're going to share this presentation with you in just a moment. But if you haven't been into Thrively, it's very easy. Thrively.com, join as an educator, and you can also log in through Google. And we will definitely give you an opportunity to get to know a little bit more. You can always reach out to me to know more about Thrively at Jeanette@Thrively.com. If you want to know more about the work that CS for Success is doing, their information at info@CS4Success is right here. And we are super excited to just continue to bring you great programming that, again, connects students' strengths with their future pathways. And I think with this partnership, we're going to see some pretty amazing things happening. So I want to pause here, see if anybody has any questions. I can certainly look at the chat, take you off microphone. If you want to jump on the mic, I can also do that. And see if anybody has any questions for our panelists or whomever. I'm also going to go ahead and stop recording.